Hey Lord Immolation, I just made like a 24-minute video too. And I apologize in advance for it being so long. And if you don't feel like watching it, you're already getting bored, I won't be hurt. I won't mind that. I endorse that. As a matter of fact, I'm making this video so that you can do that if you like. Because the short of it is that you are telling me that there are truths which cannot be verified in the real world, and yet they're still true in the real world. And those truths refer to things in the real world. That does not compute. Okay, Lord Immolation. So I've changed my mind. I'm not going to upload the 24-minute video. I'm just going to leave the other one there. And you're also right that chain of conversation was getting a little tedious at a tedious point. So I'm going to talk about something different that is related. It's nevertheless, there's related ideas, but it's a different topic as well. I want to talk about pragmatism. Okay, now don't run and read up on schools of philosophy and philosophers that have called themselves pragmatists. You can certainly use that material, but let me say what I mean by pragmatism. By pragmatism, I mean doing things because they're useful, which implies there has to be a criteria to define useful, a criteria of use, and that's fundamentally subjective. Subjective to each human being gets to assign that. All right, now, if I look at things analytically, and I think you're more analytic, I come from a pragmatic perspective, and you're coming from an analytic, you're analyzing the same problems as from an analytic perspective. And you point out that it's ironic that I do analysis if I'm coming from a pragmatic perspective, but see, I think I can explain that. But anyway, from an analytic point of view, you would say, of course, I do have a metaphysics, and my metaphysics is that of pragmatism. I must believe, according to your way of looking at it, that, if I'm correct, that it is correct to be pragmatic. And so if I accept that I have this metaphysics, that it's correct to be pragmatic, fine, that's true from that perspective. But if I look at what it means to be pragmatic, if this is a metaphysics, then I'm only supposed to be able to justify the pragmatism on analytic grounds. But I can't judge it on analytic grounds because it's subjective. But ironically, I can still justify it on pragmatic grounds, on the grounds that I want to survive, for example. But regardless, it's going to be on practical grounds that are related to perceptions and to reality. So I can justify my pragmatics on reality. I can test it on reality. Since it's practical, the definition of whether it succeeds or not is going to be found by testing it in reality. Okay, and since I'm perceptive, I believe we're just receiving perceptual streams, then testing it in reality means testing against perceptions empirically. Now, in an analytic framework, which is more fundamental? If I can explain one in terms of the other. We have analytics and we have pragmatics. Now, I don't think you can ever justify pragmatics analytically because it's subjective and it's based on material things like survival and if you want to survive and these kinds of things and your wants and desires and so on. How are you going to justify that analytically? You can't. It's up to the subjective individual ultimately to decide what those goals are. However, I think we would both agree that analytic systems like mathematics and first-order logic and modal logic and all kinds of logic are useful. And since they're useful, they have a pragmatic purpose and they can be explained pragmatically. So I can explain the existence of analytics in terms of pragmatics, but I can't explain pragmatics existence in terms of analytics, in terms of analysis. So all of this is just food for thought. You don't have to answer any particular point. It's just food for thought except for the general question of, what do you think about pragmatism and practical criteria and the subjective nature of them? You can respond to the points in here, or maybe you've already thought about those things. You probably have. And maybe you just have an opinion. Feel free to just give that opinion if you want. Either way. Cheers.